Hey gang, what if slashing your prices could make you more money in the long run? This week on Upside, we flip the switch on the discounting narrative. Hey gang, welcome to Upside. All right, in this week's episode, we want to talk through discounts and general discounting. Time and time again, we hear from brands, I don't want to do discounts because it's going to make my brand look cheap. We're not that kind of brand, or we don't want to erode our profits. And so many times we thought, I wish there was a way we could simply just convey that, how that understanding isn't quite right. And that's what we want to do today in today's pod. We want to kind of talk through discounts and discounting, the pros, and there are some cons, but the general pros of it, and just work through that way.
Yes, it may seem slightly counterintuitive, but discounting actually can help you in the long term to be more profitable. It helps with your sales velocity, and it also helps with your organic ranking if you do it correctly.
All right, so let's talk through it. We want to kind of start at the top, and let's start with the bias. Let's talk through, number one, the anti-discount bias. Zmer, what's the thing that we often hear?
Well, I think discounts get a really bad reputation, right? Because they erode margin, obviously, and there's this fear of a race to the bottom, and it's a real fear. I do understand that because a lot of that happens on Amazon. You see a lot of people doing that where they're just pushing the price down constantly. That's not what we're talking about.
Yeah, it is. And the other thing we often hear is, my brand is not the type of brand that does discounting. We have a certain persona and we don't want to be seen as a discount brand, right? So both of those are the kind of the general things that we hear, and they are both valid. But when you are trying to get your sales going, especially when you're starting, and on top of that, just the way that you may be able to try and get new customers into your brand, there is a logic to having discounts. So let's talk through the next bit, which is basically the power of strategic discounting.
Yeah, and I think the key bit here is that strategic part. What you see too often sometimes is that people discount without a strategy, and what they're not realizing is that in itself is causing a bit of a crutch and a problem, so you just keep on having to do it. A discount isn't a deal for a retailer, right? If you're a brand, a discount isn't a deal, it's a signal. And it's a signal, a really powerful one that you can send to Amazon. I think it's really important to understand discounts don't just lower prices, they lower resistance. And when you remove that resistance, what you do is you create momentum. And the one thing that we know that Amazon really rewards is momentum. And that's what you're trying to build when you use a discount on Amazon.
Right. Okay. So what you're really trying to do is send signals both to the customer, but in particular the algorithm, to say, there's something going on here. Give us more traffic, maybe give us better organic position so that more people see our products and can come in and purchase our products.
Yeah, that's very much the long-term play that you're doing here. And I think, again, it's quite easy to get trapped into that view of just looking at it from a customer's perspective. I mean, sometimes you're spending a lot of time trying to sell harder, but actually what you want to do is make a customer's choice easier. And in the long term, that play works to your benefit.
Right. So what you're doing is, not only are you lowering the barrier entry for a new customer to try a new product and to get something new. Obviously, look, this is not a supermarket where someone can physically inspect the product, or you weren't at a trade show where someone could taste the product or sample it or try it in some way. This is someone going off the back of what may be few reviews and giving them the signal to say, give this a go. We believe in it. You'll like it. Come back, come and try it. And then once they try it, they continue to come back.
Yeah, you mentioned that magic word there, the supermarket. And I think that's part of where this bias against discounting comes from, because we know that there are brands in supermarkets, and supermarkets demand brands to do discounting regularly. And then you've got other brands who see themselves as premium. They don't want to be allied to that kind of idea of being in a supermarket, to being that readily available and to being a discount brand. But you know yourself, if you're in a supermarket, you pretty much have to offer discounts, yeah, right?
That's just how it works. You'll have a joint business plan. You're going to say how many weeks in the year you're going to be discounting. Some will have requirements that you have to be discounting under. and a minimum number of discounts that you have to have per annum. And if you're not, then they track your sales year on year when you're discounting. And it's the same kind of logic we're trying to bring in here into online sales, because that logic still continues to the customer behavior that we are trying to reach out to and engage with.
Yeah, but I think there's a key difference, right? So when it comes to Amazon, what we're not trying to do is that same play, because ultimately, like you said, it's a joint business plan. You've done that aligned with the supermarkets on when you're running those discounts. On Amazon, what we're looking for is an algorithmic advantage, right? That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to program into the algorithm, not into a buyer, not into a joint business plan. We're specifically focused on a much longer term play for the brand. And it's fundamentally a different methodology, and it's a different, I guess, philosophy to it.
Awesome. Okay, so there's two things in there, right? So you're going to have, if we break that down, really more than two things, what we're really trying to say is we're trying to ultimately give signals to the algorithm that will boost your conversion rates, increase your visibility on the platform, maybe give you a better seller rank, and then enhance the overall ad efficiency. So the compounding of all of these is going to lead to a much more kind of level of intelligent discounting. So that's not just, let me drop the price and see what happens. And let's kind of move into that part now. So intelligent discounting, what do we mean by that? And what does that entail? And I think there's two parts, right? So one is the mechanisms, and then the second is this data-driven concept. So if you're right, I'm going to just quickly talk through the mechanisms, because often what will happen is, especially with newer salespeople who are new to the platform, what they'll do is they'll just say, I want to run a sale, and they'll just decrease the price, the RRP, as a mechanism on its own without anything else. And that is the first mistake people make, because Amazon have this thing where they have a look back window. So there's a period where if you want to run another type of discount, other than just like a price reduction, they will look back over a period of time, either 30 days or a whole year, depending on if it's Prime Day or Black Friday. And they'll say the discount that you have to offer is based on the lowest price during that look back window. So if you've dropped the price, you now have to add an additional 10, 15, 20% discount on top of that lowest price in the last 30 or 165 days. Right? So that's the first problem if you do that. So what you really need to do is use the internal mechanisms for doing this. And there's a whole bunch of them. There's a whole lot of promotions types that Amazon have brought in. There's the original ones, the lightning deals, your 7-day deals, best deals, and then the deals of the day, that kind of stuff. And those are all dictated to you in a way. So based on your sales velocity, if you've done things correctly, you'll get better and better promotions available to you. And then there's also really like very targeted mechanisms that they've brought in for brands themselves, that you can target people who have abandoned cart and other like Prime benefits or discounts based on that. We don't have the space and the time to talk through each one of those specifically. Have a look around on YouTube or our website to find information on the different deal mechanisms. But as the little hack, the general rule of thumb that we recommend people do is start with vouchers. Those are the ones that are always available to you. So use those vouchers. People will tick a box. You'll get better visibility. They'll tick a box and the discount will be applied. People often forget to tick the box, and so therefore you get a blended discount. That will increase your sales velocity, which will make 7-day deals and the best day deals available to you. And then from there, you can really kind of get the machine going. But number one rule, don't just drop the price. Only do that as an absolute last resort. Cool. Now on that data-driven discounting, tell me more.
Okay, so ultimately what we're talking about here is the key metrics you're trying to influence. And so that's what you're going to spend your time analyzing. If you're running a promotion, you would expect to get more clicks. So focus in on the click-through rate, first of all, okay? If you're getting more clicks, a high proportion of clicks for the number of impressions, then you know that that's working. That's the number one. That's your first signal that you're sending to Amazon. The next one is conversion rate. So once we've got a click and it's come through, it's then making sure that that's converting. So ultimately, when you're on promotion, you should see click-through rate increase and you should see conversion rate increase. Those two improvements, a symptom of them or a result of them should be a decrease in your cost per click, because Amazon's making more money from the commission it's making, so it doesn't need to make as much money from the click. So you should see a cost per click decrease. And at the same time, you should also see your organic ranking start to increase. And so those are the other things you really want to measure. Now, we're not measuring this necessarily over days. It may be over weeks, but we should see that moving. ultimately for that ASIN, the real split you want to see is a switch in terms of the proportion of orders that are coming from advertising based and organic based. So if you are starting with 70% of your orders coming from advertising and 30 from organic, you wanting to see that move to a 60-40 split and eventually a 50-50 split. And we're not saying you have to stay on promotion throughout this entire period. You're taking steps. So you're taking steps through this and you're watching those improve and you're understanding how much that promotion is actually influencing. Ultimately, if you're paying for a lot of traffic, by improving your conversion rate, you actually could be more profitable under discount than you are when you're off discount, just because of that improved conversion rate and the lower cost per click. So that's why we say it can actually in the short term also be more profitable.
That's really cool. All right. And so I think we've kind of given both the mechanics and also the data reasons behind it. But the overall objective, what you're really trying to achieve, right, is an increase in the baseline of your sales. That's kind of what you touched on, right? So if you're in a supermarket or anywhere, if you're on a promotion, what you're really doing is you're investing current profits so that you can get future profits increased, right? And if you're increasing your baseline and your baseline sales, then perfect, the promotion is working. And if it's not, then just go back to the data, find out what's not working, and then run your A/B tests and find out other strategies to try and improve your sales and improve that baseline.
Yeah, I also want to come back to that one point I made at the beginning, which is like Amazon really rewards momentum, and a well-timed discount shouldn't be seen as a markdown. It can very much be a launch pad for you.
Awesome. All right. So let's kind of move this to the real world and look at a case study around this. And we've run this basically with nearly all of our brands. Let's talk through one simple one. It's a coffee brand. And so as you know, coffee is in very many ways a commodity product. Yes, there's different brands and different things you stick on it, but very much a commodity. So how do we use discounting and what was the outcome?
We've used promotion to get people to try the product. I think this is, so the one benefit of coffee, the thing against it is a commodity. The benefit to it is there's a lifetime value. People come and buy it regularly and consistently. So we were able to lean into that. It meant that from a cost of acquisition perspective, we could have a higher cost to it. And so we could lean more aggressively into promotions, get people to try it, and then get people to subscribe to it. And eventually, we took a brand essentially from £4,000 a month to £140,000 a month just by playing this over a period of less than 18 months.
Yeah, and that's the other bit, right? So it's not just like a one-off thing. This took a period, 18 months to do that level of growth, but it was systematic, strategic kind of implementation of promotions. So we were looking at this promotion now, then we're going to cycle this one for this reason, we're going to cycle this one for this reason. And then we would review after, say, 2 or 3 months. Did that work? Yes, it worked. This one didn't work. So keep this one, change that one, and keep reviewing and iterating.
Lots of iterations. That's really important. As I said, always looking at the feedback and looking at what the customers are telling you, what they're responding to and when they're responding to it. Ultimately, it's one of the most competitive markets on Amazon. We were able to do that because we took a very long-term view, and the brand was willing to take that long-term view with us to grow their sales.
What are some of the counter arguments? We've identified 2. Do you want to just talk through those as well, Zamir?
There are certain brands where it doesn't work. If you're a particularly luxury-driven, very well-known, highly searched brand, then I can understand why discounting may not be necessary. In a lot of ways, you're funding that those sales not through promotion, but through advertising and brand awareness. The other part, I guess, is just understanding how it impacts on your other channels, and always have to be cognizant of how it's impacting or seen by your other channels.
And then the other one we'd probably say is the discounting trap or the discount trap. Do you want to kind of talk through that one?
Yeah, the discount trap is where you're discounting, but not strategically. It's where you're just doing it to boost sales in the short term, then pulling back, not necessarily looking at the metrics and understanding a long-term play on it. And then you can get into that cycle of completely getting trapped into it. You have to have that longer strategic understanding of what you're doing. You can't just discount.
And what happens if you're already price competitive? Let's say you have a mid-range price product or a EDLP, everyday low price kind of product. What about then? Should you be discounting? You're not luxury, you are just run the mill and you're price competitive. What do you reckon then in that scenario? What would you say?
I think in that scenario, you have to consider where your starting point is and really revisit that potentially to be able to use those promotions. The thing that we know is the promotions on Amazon actually act as really strong indicators and calls to action, as well as conversions. And without them in most of those everyday categories, you will be losing clicks. And if you lose clicks, you lose momentum. And that's it's an uphill battle to fight back against. So again, this comes back to that original point of needing to be more strategic in your approach on Amazon. And it may well differ to your approach in other channels.
And if I can add, the other thing is if you're already coming in at a price competitive point, and especially if you're new to a market, you want to catalyze and encourage people to try and sample your product and kickstart the algorithm in your favor. And so there may be a reason to actually do that promotion just to get things going, at least do some vouchers. We often recommend brands. We have a sheet that we can use to kind of assess a brand's or a product's feasibility. And so before you start, we would always recommend make sure you have enough margin to operate and still do promotions. So that way, if you are coming in to enter a market, you want to make sure you have the right margins available. And then that will help also assess what kind of promotion activity you might run. All right, so I think that covers it. I think we've made a strong case for why you should run promotions. There are, in our opinion, there are reasons why you may not, but generally we think that there's a case for it. It has to be very logical and very structured and data-driven, not just to turn the switch on and walk away. But anyway, if you'd like us to have a look at, whether you should run some discounts, feel free to reach out. We're happy to look into it for you and give you some thoughts and opinions. So other than that, I think that wraps out the pod. Much love.
One up.
Hey team, if you've been enjoying Upside and want to keep getting that sweet, sweet value on marketplaces, please click follow, subscribe, or whatever it is you're listening on, and follow us along. It'll make our day.